footprint on the environment has led to catastrophe. Multiple stresses such as habitat loss, pollution, overexploitation, wildfires, climate change has led to eroding biodiversity. We are at the tipping point of global ecosystem collapse. Good afternoon. You're listening to Communal Living at 96.7 FM. I'm Aparna Mukerji, the creator and host of the show. Indigenous traditional local knowledge is critical for conservation. This knowledge has accumulated through a long series of observations, transmitted from generations to generations. Today, to shed light on the importance of weaving Indigenous knowledge with Western conservation philosophies to heal the world, I am in conversation with Mrs. Marilyn Capreol, an elder and knowledge keeper from the Shawanaga First Nations Reserve community, and Ms. Laura Blease, Team Lead Indigenous Affairs Ontario and founder of Seeds for Eco-Communities. Hi, Laura and Marilyn. How are you both doing today?
Awesome.
It's a beautiful day. Thanks for the invitation back on the Communal Living series, Aparna.
Thank you for coming and sharing your wisdom. So, Marilyn, I have a question for you. For our listeners, please share an experience that had led to internal transformation in your life, and what have you learned from it?
I'm first going to give thanks for this beautiful and sacred day. Say miigwech to nokomas Jesus. Imimo Mishomas Jesus. I give thanks to Grandmother Moon, who walked across the sky and has now gone on her journey to bed to sleep, but she will come back. And I give thanks to Grandfather Sun for lifting himself up today to warm the children of the earth, the plants, the animals, the swimmers, and the new ones that have come to life. I give thanks as well to our beautiful and sacred men for allowing us ladies to bring our voices across ethical space. That space is between Earth Woman and Sky Man. So I thank you for allowing us this celebration. The most impressive thing for me in my life walk, which is a long time, there have been many, but the most turning point for me was my opportunity to serve in a community within the cities of Toronto. I had the privilege of working with our homeless, share their values, become their friend. They showed me a whole world that no piece of paper could ever do. They taught me about spirituality. They taught me about kindness, and they taught me how to speak up with dignity. Even sometimes my spirit was hard because I could not stand the things that needed to be done and to have to say them in a good way. But they taught me about thinking beyond myself and thinking about all of the things that could be happier. So for that is the most life-changing event that had ever happened to me in my growth, and I'm so thankful. Miigwech.
Thank you, Marilyn. Laura, please tell our listeners about yourself and what is Seeds for Eco-Communities, your organization?
Sure. So in the daytime, I work as a team lead at Indigenous Affairs Ontario. Here I have the opportunity to help advise, guide, and in some cases deliver provincial policies and programs. Some of the areas I work in include housing, food security, drinking water, climate change, and economic opportunities. Secondly, I've been very fortunate for a number of years to be a helper to Marilyn. In this role, I support Marilyn in a variety of ceremonies, events, and conferences across the country. And sometimes she even takes me into the bush and teaches me about the respectful ways to harvest medicines. Through this role, I've learned more than any book or course could have ever taught me about the natural environment, how to utilize resources in a sustainable and respectful way, along with the courage to speak up, which Marilyn just spoke about in a good way. And of course, there's Seeds for Eco Communities, which is an Ontario-based not-for-profit organization with a global vision. It was established in 2016 as a means to share information, tools, and resources with people around the globe on how to live sustainably. Our focus at Seeds for Eco Communities is showing others how to live with instead of on their natural environment, establishing a respectful relationship with the surrounding lands and waters, as well as the broader community. This is becoming increasingly important with a changing climate and extreme weather events. At Seeds for Eco Communities, our focus is around sustainable community-based living. However, we do provide a number of general resources, including education on how to move the yardstick towards a more sustainable life.
So, Laura, you got me interested. What role do Indigenous elders play in Seeds for Eco Communities?
At Seeds for Eco Communities, we are humbled to have First Nations elders participate on our team, some of whom who have been participating since the onset of our organization, including Marilyn, who was there from the very beginning. We are fortunate to have the elders participate in our advisory committee as well as on our board of directors. The elders provide sound advice in all that we do, whether it be helping to guide growth of our organization or providing an Indigenous lens on the events, products, and partnerships we develop. They have also supported us at visiting the potential pieces of land in our quest to find the first pilot community for Ontario. When visiting the land with the elders, they share their deep knowledge around the status of the health of the plants and animals we see and can expect to see on that piece of land. They advise how the land could be utilized to support a new community in a way that has minimal impacts on Mother Earth, and to help identify any red flags they can see with their eyes and spiritual connection to the lands and waters.
So, Marilyn, as a First Nations elder, with your knowledge of the environment, Indigenous traditional medicine, what can we learn from Indigenous culture and values to protect and conserve the environment?
The traveling over the water and lands across the nation has taught me many things. Has taught me the value of where the peoples lived at one time. How do I know this? It's because they left their mark of the sacred medicines behind. The tall blades of sweetgrass that billow in the wind right now at this time of year. The places where the beautiful scent of sage is an aroma that is so recognizable in that gentle wind that comes across your face. I look to the cedar trees where the animals live and know that they harvest food for themselves throughout the year, a place for shelter. And as I sit here talking today, I have my hand on a pouch of tobacco to help me say good things. Those are landmarks that are left behind in time. When I talked about the paper learning, I bet no discredit to the trees, the stand tall people that provide that page to be written upon. The land also has that place too. It tells us what happened before, what can happen again when we make that relationship. They are the knowledge keepers. The people are only the instruments to carry the knowledge when we wake up to understand that. When we built communities along the way, just listening to our grandfather, who was born in the 1800s, and we knew him in our lifetime, the miraculous life that he presented to us in value, where he lived, what he worked with, the integration of living in that Nishnawbik value of life and integrating into the people who came He learned many things that he left with us in shared knowledge. He worked in the lumber camps at the age of 12. His first job there was to do the fire keeping the cook stoves ready. Fire boy, they called him. Then he realized that he could mix the dough and make pancakes, and that gave him a step up in pay. Later, he said that he learned that the most highest paid and valued job was learning how to sharpen the blades of the saws. And it was something that we would not have thought about. So the systems of knowledge have been integrated since we came together. Somehow we've walked away from that in a distance. Both nations are all nations together. It is time to revisit that sacred place called the gifts of knowledge.
Thank you, Marilyn. So, Laura, as a biologist myself, I've often thought that Indigenous knowledge about nature aligns with the conservation philosophies of the West. How can we bring the two together to serve a greater purpose of healing the world?
I believe that working together with our Indigenous relatives is the solution to sustainability. In the work that I've had the pleasure of undertaking, the understanding that I've been privileged to share with on this journey through ceremony, teachings, and getting out into the bush and on the water has made it very clear to me how valuable Indigenous knowledge really is. Indigenous elders have such a powerful grasp on the surrounding environment, both in understanding how it is changing and what is needed to protect it. They can recognize changes in plants and animal life that are key indicators to changes that are taking place at a much broader scale. This is sometimes referred to as traditional ecological knowledge, and this knowledge can complement Western science and ultimately inform actions that are needed. I believe there is space in this world for both Indigenous and Western science to coexist, to complement each other, as well as we join together to face these common challenges in saving Mother Earth. On a personal note, I have faced a few health challenges over the past 2 decades. Unfortunately, through the partnerships and care of the First Nations elders, I've had the opportunity to see a First Nations elder healer. Both the healing he provided and the tea medicines that followed our visit have been instrumental in bringing me back to good health. This includes supporting my recovery from a rare liver condition where I visited 39 Western doctors for assistance and could not find any resolution through Western testing, procedures, and medicine. I will be forever grateful for the kindness and strength the elders and healers have shared with me on my journey. So you ask how important Indigenous knowledge is? In my eyes, it is essential to our survival on a personal and global scale.
Well, Marilyn, I have the same question for you. What's your take on this? How do we bring our knowledge of the Western knowledge or Western philosophies of conservation and Indigenous local knowledge of the environment together? What can we do to bring the two together?
We are in a fine example, all of us together, Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. We need to pay attention to what is happening. The fires and the waters. Each one of these gifts is a powerful medicine. Without the water, no living thing could exist. And without the fire, there would be no warmth within the communities. The women are responsible because we are the bearing life givers to take care of that water, that beautiful and sacred water. And the men, our beautiful men, are the caretakers of the fire, keeping the community focused around the center of it. Both medicines are greatly needed. I'm concerned about our environment today. I do not have a good answer to know how to be able to turn it around except to speak about it. I'm fortunate that I was born at such a time as I was. A time before plastic, if we could imagine that. A time without plastic anything. A time when we lived with natural product. I remember as a child, just because of where we lived, all people lived. When we went to the grocery store, we had our own wooden crates. They were easy to fit in the boats without tipping over. And in the winter time, those same wooden crates sat on the sleighs as we pulled those same groceries home from the store. Today, we are not satisfied unless we've got 20 bags plastic. And inside the plastic is more plastic to hold the groceries that no longer breathe a natural life. We need to be ready to supplement and change that value alone. The health is making community gardens a sharing. Being able to share is one of the biggest gifts that we've walked away from. We need to rekindle that relationship. How quick the answers aren't quick enough to turn around what is happening, what we have created. And it's going to take all of us, all nations, to make a difference. And when we are ready, we need to stand up and say, I am ready. I am today. Miigwech.
Thank you. That's a beautiful answer, Marilyn. I've worked with elders from the First Nation communities in Manitoulin Island for a few years, and I got exposed and enjoyed Indigenous culture. For our listeners, if you could please tell us more about your childhood and your experiences of growing up on the shores of Georgian Bay.
Miigwech for the question. My childhood is really fond memories for me. Mainly because it wasn't clustered with all kinds of gadgets and things. It was very, very simple. We learned to live with the land, the water. I was born and raised 7 miles out on the water on the island, from the mainland. And that world had no electricity, no telephones, no high-speed internet, no noise pollution, no light pollution. My play yard were the rocks, and beside our cabin, there was one little puddle there that was shaped like a mitt. Being the youngest of 6 children, I had some definite ideas. I had a little pail, but it was a pail that honey or peanut butter came on it. Everything was recycled and reused with purpose. So to have one of those pails given to me was a great thing for me to have. And I carried water to that little place, that little puddle that looked like a mitt, because I built a community there for my buddies, the frogs that I could catch. Had these little sticks and floats that I could find along the shoreway to make them a shelter or a place to sit. I watched a child not long ago who had some toys, and I thought how sad, because they were all made from plastic. My toys were the real thing. If I wanted my little frog to swim, I just squeezed him, and his legs and arms would go. As long as I fed him, he didn't mind getting squeezed, and he didn't mind swimming. No batteries to be put in the land when it was finished. Our toys were simple. In the springtime, we would all go, children walking along the shores of the island to the outer bay, hoping that there would be some boards that had floated in from somewhere. Sometimes they were repurposed within the family house, but often we could make little boats from them, which our grandfather helped us cut the ends so that they had a point. Repurposing rusty nails or nails that had been bent made us a little tug line, and the value of repurposing string from the grocery boxes from the stores gave us that line to pull that boat around, little boat. And we had our voices to make the sound of what we thought was a motor. This was a way of life. My mother had a laundry business. She was quite an entrepreneur. And that business she ran with a gas washing machine. And the dryer was the natural clothes hanging out on line, with the wind and the sun being that softener and dryer. Learning that a safety pin was a great gift because it could be reshaped to make us a fishing hook. One of our aunties knew how to make flies bait for us with the moss, big tall moss. That's what my childhood looked like. People came to visit. We didn't ask them if they were hungry. They sat down at the table. A place was given up, and the children would move aside to make way for the elders. I don't know how messages traveled from out there to the shore when our grandmother and her aunt and her sisters came to make quill boxes and harvest berries for the winter income. But when they needed more porcupine quills, that message came, and a few days later, somebody would come up the bay in a rowboat or a canoe, bringing what they needed. They would eat. My grandma would watch again as they left until there was no more sight of that canoe or rowboat. It was magnificent. If we could live in that place of peace and be satisfied with less, we would be healthier and happier people. Miigwech.
Thank you, Marilyn. Laura, what can we learn from Indigenous belief systems in regards to management and fostering good relationships?
One of the wonderful things I've learned in working with Indigenous partners is how to open and close a meeting, discussion, or ceremony in a good way. Taking just a few minutes to clear your mind and welcome good and kind thoughts into your gathering is such a beneficial step. This can be undertaken through an opening prayer, and if in person, is often accompanied by a smudge. A closing prayer is also shared to close off the meeting in a good way and to let the spirit helpers know their job is complete. A smudge involves lighting one of the sacred medicines. Often this is sage. The smudge bowl is then taken around the circle, and each person is given an opportunity to bring forward the smoke towards their heads, eyes, ears, mouth, and heart, so that they can think, see, hear, and speak in a good way. The other thing that I've really resonated with me on my learning journey to gather in a good way is meetings always take place in a circle when you're meeting with Indigenous partners. The reason for this is to bring about equality and balance to the discussion. Regardless of what hat you might be wearing at that gathering, this provides a sense of equality to everyone in that circle. Finally, I'm inspired by the strength that I hear in the Indigenous voices who speak up to help protect Mother Earth. This has provided me personally with a lot of courage to move forward in all the work that I do in my various roles. So miigwech for that.
Marilyn, all over the world, Indigenous languages are under the threat of extinction. Do you think it is important that in schools, Indigenous languages are taught as a part of the curriculum, and to also preserve culture and values and spread awareness about the history of Indigenous peoples in Canada?
Absolutely. The reinstatement is a repatriation of life that once existed. In teaching and understanding the language, it has a relationship. It has a spirit. Often the birds will come, and they are songs that they carry, have a way of knowing. And I like to acknowledge the chickadee, that beautiful little bird. It was given 2 songs, one for female and one for the male. The geese, with their voices, when they return from that faraway place at the southern door, they come and sit on that spring ice, which means very little ice. And there's an opening of water for them to sit. And listening to them talk to one another, it has sounds of some of the words of our language. Just prior to that time, when spring comes, if I were to write journals and keep them steady, I would call that journal Iganol Kun. What does that mean? It means the talking ice. That is when there's water movement under the ice. It's like waves, and it goes through and travels through, and it gives such a sound. The language is in that spirit. And the ones that are under the land, that have their own city under the water, they too have a voice. The bullfrog goes to sleep in that deep mud. And when the warmth of Earth Woman begins again, it has that voice to say, I am here. Grump, grump. He acknowledges a special place. The winds that come as they sing through the pine trees in the early spring, their songs are beautiful. But when they're in conjunction with that time where the ice goes away and it's in a honeycomb state, and the 2 of them sing together, it is a renewal of that water spirit. I don't know language fluent today, because when we were small, we could not speak that. But I try very hard. And the learning comes through the songs that are gifted through ceremony. There may not be many, but I'm willing to learn. That is a promise to myself. Miigwech.
Thank you. So, Laura, in a world that is so influenced by materialism and self-centeredness, how can we teach the importance of simple communal living and raise our children to be compassionate, caring, and responsible individuals?
Thanks, Aparna. I think the first thing I would say is don't be afraid to make connections and partnerships with your local community. Take part in a powwow or a ceremony that is being offered in your area. Many of these are open and welcoming to all members of society, regardless of if you are Indigenous or not. There is so much to learn from Indigenous people about how to live in a communal way, not only with each other, but also with the earth. The foundation of many Indigenous cultures is based on respect and care for the earth and one another, which are fundamental principles to a healthy and happy community. Indigenous people remind us of the value of each other and of the environment and the many benefits of sharing and being kind to one another, a teaching that is often lost in the busy modern world we live in. So you ask how we can work together? Reach out, be brave, and don't be afraid to ask questions. If you are asking a First Nations elder for some advice or to share knowledge with you, the respectful way to do that is to offer a small bundle of tobacco wrapped in cloth. The size of the bundle is not important. It is the intent that is behind this offering to work together and understand in a good way.
So, Laura, there is a growing housing crisis in Canada. How do we understand communal living, and if joining resources and fostering relationships is the solution to environmental sustainability and equitable housing?
So I think we can understand communal living together by exploring the resources that are out there. Seeds for Eco Communities website, for example, has a number of short and easy to digest pieces of information, tools, and activities to support various learning preferences. And there are many other organizations doing elements of communal living with great resources and tools to use. We can foster relationships by being brave, starting the conversation with the ones you love, and joining conversations with people you don't know in this space. I would like to share a quote by Dolores Huerta. Every moment is an organizing opportunity. Every person a potential activist, and every minute a chance to change the world. Please think about that for a moment, and don't be afraid to speak up. It is important to note that you are so not alone in this endeavor. There's a massive group and growing of like-minded people doing their part for a better world. I know this because I have the privilege of meeting different people like this on my travels almost every day.
Thank you, Laura. So, Marilyn, I would like to get back to you. And the question is, the world, in a world that is so influenced by materialism and self-centeredness, how can we raise our children to be caring and compassionate and responsible individuals? Please share your wisdom.
The more that we bring our children to the land, when they put their feet down for the first time, let it be on the land. They know more than what we realize. We believe that they are gifts returned from the spirit world, giving us an opportunity to care for one more life. The sacredness, making it easy. I always think about watching our children when they were younger enjoy so much getting together with their cousins. They were like a pack. They played on the water. And when they were old enough, responsibility of a box of worms and some fishing hooks, they went and they caught lots of rock bass. And we honored that gift until they began to grow older and make that relationship with the water beings, what fish to leave alone, put them back because they have a great purpose there, and the ones that they could take in a special way. To take them to harvest at a farmer's place, at a farm place, you go and pick yourself. Maybe you don't have the space in the city, but there are many places like that. You can still do that today. Go pick your strawberries, your raspberries. Go pick your pumpkins in the fall. It is food and fun, pumpkins. To see them enjoy having a cob of corn. To make those relationships, that is our responsibility. As Laura said, we've traveled across Canada. We've been gifted that way. And as we traveled, we went to communities where there were smaller home living, set in a community. The first one we saw was just south of Steinbeck, Manitoba. The energy and the health of the land, when the grandfather of the community there took us to show us how to repurpose waste, human waste, food waste, into compost, it was quite impressive. The abundance and the health of the garden. It was a hot day, but as we passed the garden, you wouldn't know because there was so much life there. The vibrance of that vegetable bed, I just wanted to lay down on the ground near the beautiful vegetables that were growing there. I'd never seen things like that since I was small. And the repurposing, not a footprint of any kind of energy other than natural. They had a common house that each person went to for their evening meal. They built that together as a community. The floor was most impressive. They had taken the clay, the red clay from the river. No glue, no paint, just a natural. And the children were there. They had a place for the children to play. They weren't left out of the community family meal or discussions. They could hear those things. We need to remember to include our children as an equal. And I think we'll have a better place when we integrate those principles in their life. That's a responsibility. Miigwech.
Thank you, Marilyn. So my next question is for Laura. What are the practical and emotional benefits of communal living and living in eco-communities?
Sure. Maybe I'll just start by talking about what is an eco-community and then answer your question for those who are listening. So eco-communities are defined in different ways as you travel around the world. There are common elements in most eco-communities related to sustainable living. However, they each have their own special interests, character, and unique design. At Seeds for Eco-Communities, we define an eco-community as a group of like-minded people living together in harmony with their surrounding environment, sharing tools and resources to protect the earth for future generations. So the scale of an eco-community will differ as you move around to different geographies, as will the type of buildings that exist there, which is largely influenced by the local climate, affordability, and the local laws of the region. So in terms of the practical and emotional benefits of communal living in eco-communities, practically speaking, living in this communal setting provides a number of economic, environmental, and social benefits. For example, as you do a lot of sharing in an eco-community or communal setting, simply put, there's less need for so much stuff because you are sharing. This creates cost savings and lightens the footprint on Mother Earth. Often bartering systems are set up, which is a legal way to enable trading of goods and services without the tax and the added bonus of a caring hand that fixes the house, grows the vegetable, or sews the blanket. On the emotional side of things, this type of life provides a sense of belonging, of purpose, of a community family who are there for one another on many levels. This can lead to great happiness. When I read about people who are living a long, healthy, and happy life at ages sometimes over 100 years, it is often an environment of communal living.
So, Laura, what does the future hold for Seeds for Eco Communities? What do the next 10 years look like?
Well, we are quite a busy team. We have many projects underway. One of the things we're doing is we have a growing list of those who are interested in living in an eco-community. So we're helping to connect together people in geographies from around the world with those like-minded people. Although eco-community living is something that's not new in other countries, to Ontario it's a very new concept. So we are looking to establish a pilot community here in Ontario, as well as continuing to grow our networks on our social media channels and continuing to release those great resources that we are so thankful to the team and volunteers who help support. And finally, participating in events like today, online and in-person events, including the growing momentum from the Tiny House Show that just happened a few weeks ago.
And Laura, are you accepting new students for volunteering opportunities?
Yes, we always have volunteering opportunities available at Seeds for Eco Communities, and we welcome the continued growth of our team, and that's any person of any age. As a not-for-profit organization, volunteers are really the backbone of our operations. At Seeds for Eco Communities, much of the work we undertake is delivered by these kind and keen individuals. So we're always looking for support in the areas of content creation, new ideas for resources, events, and fundraisers, and helping with grant writing, as well as growing out those social media channels. So if any of the listeners are interested in getting involved, please drop us an email. Any contribution will help, and we welcome you on board. All new volunteers are provided with an orientation binder and offered online training, as well as being recognized at the annual general meeting with an appreciation gift. And if you don't have time to volunteer, we welcome your support through our recently launched membership program this week, and that is on our social media channels if you'd like some more information.
Thank you. Marilyn, I'm always seeking wisdom. If there was a piece of advice that you would like to give me about life, what would it be?
I am going to say miigwech to Wagosh. Who is Wagosh? I'm looking at a photo right now of a mother and a baby fox. And why I'm speaking about this is because it's natural. They are natural. They are in a natural habitat that is for them. How they utilize the land and be respectful. They build only what they need and don't take any more. So for that, I'm very grateful that they brought that knowledge and wisdom to be heard today. No policies, just knowledge. Miigwech.
Thank you. And would you like to close?
Absolutely. I give thanks to Turtle Woman who allowed us to travel across her back to come here and visit. I'm grateful again for beautiful and sacred men to allow us to visit wherever you are, traveling in a car, sitting on your porch or kitchen, visiting with one another. So I say miigwech to Mishomas Jesus, our Creator, for allowing this gift.
Thank you, Marilyn and Laura, for joining us today and sharing your insights and wisdom. Communal Living airs bi-weekly. We'll be back with a new show on September 16th at 3 p.m. Till then, namaste, shabakher, miigwech. I hope you all have a good day.